thanks a lot so much for joining this again. So my name is Stephen Ochoa. I am MALDEF's National District Coordinator. So MALDEF, for those of you who are not familiar with us, I assume you are, but just FYI, we were founded in 1968, and we call ourselves the Lawyers for the Latino Community. We have been participating in the redistricting process since our founding, so 50 years now, and that involves advocacy and that involves litigation, the whole gamut, whole spectrum. And so this is something institutionally, we are very familiar with. So today I am going to be speaking about about just giving you a little bit of an overview of redistricting. Very little. I'm not going to teach redistricting in detail, but just enough to get a point across of why it's important. And then really this presentation is going to be about joining the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. Again, any questions, if you're watching this live, please send them to me in the chat box, and I will be answering them at the end of the presentation. And if you're watching this as a recording, email me at sochoa@maldef.org. Of course, you can email me regardless at sochoa@maldef.org, and I will answer questions to the best of my ability about redistricting and the and applying to the commission. All right, so very simply, let's get started. Very simple, redistricting 101. What is redistricting? Redistricting is the redrawing of political boundaries. Why do we have to redistrict? Well, in the United States, we have this principle called one person, one vote. And that principle means that every districted jurisdiction, and if you have a districted jurisdiction, your districts have to be equal in total population. That's every man, woman, child, citizen, non-citizen alike. Any jurisdiction that has districts, so we're talking about your state legislatures, your county board of supervisors, maybe your city councils or your school boards, even special districts, if they have districts, they elect their representatives by districts, they're going to have to go through redistricting. And it happens after the census data comes out. So which is why redistricting traditionally happens every 10 years. Why? Because the census is a source of total population. So literally the census will release data down to like the block level, very, very tiny blocks. In an urban area, it's like your city blocks. And drawers like myself will take those data and map it and draw shapes and create equal populous districts. And just giving you a sense, again, census data, if you keep in mind the districts that were drawn almost 10 years ago were drawn for equal population, but over time your jurisdiction changes, right? Some areas grow, some areas don't, and the demographics within your jurisdiction or state change. So just looking at the California story, in 1990, Latinos were about 26% of the total population. And our most recent estimates from the census have Latinos out at 39% of the population. California grew about 10 million total people and from 1990 and to most recent estimates. And in 1990, California was a majority white population state, 57% non-Latino white in 1990, and now non-Latino whites are estimated to be 37%. So just in this almost 30 years, California's demographic story has just drastically shifted. So so that also will affect districting. So another reason why we have to redraw is it's not just total population changes, but the demographics change as well. And and again, that kind of instinctually leads to why is redistricting? The question is, why is redistricting important? Because how you draw the lines, especially if your jurisdiction has had massive demographic shifts, not in just total population shifts, but in demographic shifts, how you draw the lines affects who gets elected to your jurisdiction. And further, how redistricting has influenced where traditionally, when traditionally underrepresented minorities, whether they have a chance to elect candidates of their choice to their city council, their state government, whatever. Again, if they have a districted jurisdiction, they will have to go through redistricting. And this is just a very modest example again of how, how line drawings matter. This is my example. I call it, imagine the city, the square city is called Imagination City, very imaginative. And I have to draw 4 city council districts. Again, they have to be equal in population. So, each district should have 4 people. If I draw the line similar to the shape on the left, the green folks are communities kind of separate. And they will not be able to elect a candidate of choice in any of those districts on the left. But if I draw the line similar to shapes on the right, again, all 4 of those districts have the same total amount of people, but the green folks are put into their own district, and presumably they can elect their own candidate of choice and therefore get, a representative on their fictional city council. So how you draw the lines affects who gets elected. Who draws the lines? And you can see we're building towards something. It depends. For the most part, the body themselves will redistrict. It's the most common redistricting process. Your city council will usually redistrict themselves. Your school boards will usually redistrict themselves. In most states, the state legislature will redistrict itself along with their congressional districts. And they'll usually go through a process of however they pass a law, very similar. And a process that's increasing in popularity are called redistricting commissions. You see where we're leading towards. There's traditionally 2 types of redistricting commissions. There are independent commissions and advisory commissions. An independent commission simply means that the final line-making authority lies with them. They get to decide the final lines. An advisory commission are usually a group of appointees by the city council members or county supervisors or whatnot, and they kind of go and do like the bulk of the grunt work. They'll do a lot of public input meetings before the maps, gather testimony, and in many instances even draw a suggested boundary. But that suggestion, that map suggestion goes up to the actual legislative body, the city council, for example, and then the city council would take care of the final decision making and maybe even tweak the lines or substantially change. It has known to happen. But an advisory commission, again, they do the grunt work, but they don't have the final authority. Independent commission, they do have final authority. And finally, the last group that could potentially draw lines are courts. Say, a legislative body or commission draws a set of lines and they're challenged in court and they're found illegal for some odd reason. The courts could draw the final map to fix what they felt was the violation. So that's who draws the lines. How can you participate in a redistricting process? So in general, I kind of have a few mantras. I call them learn, organize, testify, and support. First, you learn your jurisdiction's redistricting processes and rules. Figure out if they have legislative process or a commission process. Organize. Start organizing your community. If you have a group that is organized, when redistricting changes and proposals come out, and at certain points they will come in fast and furious, you have to have a group of people ready to react. So if you're organized, and you can go and participate and testify and support or complain about proposals, it's the best way to kind of influence your process, whatever it is. And then of course, as you testify, if you're organized and you have a large group, you go and testify, and I'll say the same thing. Another way you can also participate in a redistricting process is support organizations like MALDEF. Community-based organizations throughout the nation will be participating in redistricting. So that is, supporting us, giving your information to us is also another way to participate, because I can tell you MALDEF will be drawing maps for statewide plans and in some locals. But also, leading to the whole point of this participation, you can also apply to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. So this is kind of the crux of this webinar. So the California Citizens Redistricting Commission, they're taking their applications now, and you can apply at shape, the link's on my screen, shapecaliforniasfuture.auditor.ca.gov. The California State Auditor's Office is in charge of the application process. The deadline, actually, it was just yesterday extended to August 19th. It was August 9th. So we have a little bit more time to apply for at least the initial deadline, initial application deadline. So that's the punchline of this entire presentation, though. Apply to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. Tell your qualified friends to apply to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. The simple application process deadline is August 19th. But that's the punchline of this webinar. But let's back up a little bit. So what is the CCRC, the California Citizens Redistricting Commission, CCRC for short? So this commission is in charge of drawing California's statewide legislative boundaries. That means they are going to draw all of California's congressional districts, all our state senate, our state assembly, and our state board of legalization districts. So we have, that's currently 53 congressional districts. We'll find out after the census if California gains or stays the same or loses congressional representation. That's 40 Senate districts, that's 80 assembly districts, and 4 board of equalization districts. The body will be made up of 14 people, 14 commissioners, and they'll be grouped by 5 Democrat, 5 Republican, and 4 anybody else, which is declined to state or no party or a third party. And these 14 people will draw these 4 sets of California statewide boundaries. Who can apply to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission? Basically, most Californians are eligible to apply. The first you do, but there are some restrictions. The first major restriction is your electoral participation history. First, you have to have been registered in California for the last 5 years. Since July 1st, 2015, you have to have been continuously registered in California. So you can't have left, registered somewhere else and come back. And you have to have voted, and you have to have been continuously registered under the same partisan affiliation. So you have to have been 5 years registered as a Dem, 5 years registered as a Republican, 5 years as a independent party or declined to state. It has to just be consistent. Second major restriction is you have to have voted in 2 out of the last 3 November statewide general elections. That means we're talking November 2014, 2016, and 2018. 2 out of those 3 elections you have to have cast a ballot. That is the major eligibility restriction on who can apply to the California Redistricting Commission. There are also some political restrictions. So when the ballot measure was made, the authors were trying to restrict, for lack of a better word, political people from applying to this commission. The whole point is that they wanted people, their goal was they wanted people that were, loyal to the people and not necessarily the partisan parties or an incumbent or a candidate, etc. So there are political restrictions on who can apply. So the first, most obvious is you can't have been a statewide elected official, or a state member of the state legislature or a member of U.S. Congress in the last 10 years, or Board of Legalization. So anything that the commission will draw. But there are also a series of restrictions on kind of your political activity groups. So if you're a major donor, you're not going to be able to apply. And here, donors is defined as having contributed $2,500 or more in a single year to any of these offices that the commission will draw. You can't have been an elected or appointed official. You can't have been staff for any of these offices. You can't be a registered lobbyist. You can't have been a member of the major political party campaign committees. So basically there are a lot of restrictions, and these restrictions not only apply to you in the last 10 years, but what they call bona fide family members. So if you basically or any of your family members are one of these folks, that is also restricted. And let me also clarify something. what they call a bona fide family member in law is, you know, are they your parents, your in-laws, your spouse, your kids, your siblings, your in-laws, your etc. You see, as you see on the screen. But it's not just, so just them being your family members not necessarily strikes you, but it's basically, do you live with them, or do you give them, or do they give you money, as in like family support, or do you share like in a business? So for example, my sister-in-law is actually on the California Coastal Commission, but I don't live with her, we don't share business, and you know, we aren't exchanging money, at least more than $1,000 worth in a single year. So technically, so her affiliation, while would strike her, that by itself would not strike me. So it's, if you have questions about some of your history, I still, you can email me or the auditor, and we'll answer some of these questions. But obviously, if there's still questions, you can still apply. I would still suggest applying, and the auditor is going to be going through their due diligence anyways, and they will let you know if you are eligible or not as we go through it. And again, if you have questions about any of this process, please type them in the chat window, and I will answer them at the end of the webinar. What makes a good candidate? So the commission regulations kind of basically ask, they're looking for people who have relevant analytical skills, ability to be impartial, and have appreciation for California's diversity. What are relevant analytical skills? Basically, can you understand a lot of complex rules? And you're going to get a lot of statistics and maps thrown at you, and various rules of redistricting. You're going to be able, you need to be able to attend public meetings and public hearings. You're going to have a lot of people talking at you. You have to be able to listen. And you're going to have a lot of people coming at you with different ideas and probably competing ideas. So that's kind of a complex problem. So you have to be able to kind of weigh them and decide, within the rules of redistricting, what's the best, and within kind of what's best for California, in your opinion, where should lines go? The ability to be impartial is a big deal to the applicant review panel. Can you listen to people testify with some seriously opposing viewpoints as you, but just try to listen and take it in and listen respectfully, and can you set aside, if you're a deeply partisan person, can you set that aside and try to make generically what are good fits for the state? Can you, and do you have, and part of not only just listening to people, but you also have to be able to appreciate that California is, again, a really diverse state. As I showed earlier, at this point, California is a majority minority state. Latinos are estimated to be the largest group in the state. But, we have, a very substantially large Asian and Pacific Islander population, African American population. We have a lot of Native Americans in our wonderful state. So you have to be able to, and we have a rich geography as well. We've got Southern California, we've got our Central Coast and Central Valley, plus our super Northern California counties, which are much more rural. So we have the wide spectrum from urban to rural, and demographics. So you have to be able to kind of like, all right, we have a lot of diversity in the state, and within the rules of redistricting, how can we be fair to these different regions and groups? And that's kind of what they're looking for in a good candidate. And so I'm just showing you some rules of redistricting, and I'm only not putting these up to necessarily teach you them all in detail right now. If you are selected as a commissioner, you will be taught redistricting in many of these rules. But the commission will have actually ranked rules. So big rule number 1 is equal population, which is what we discussed, why we have to redistrict. Big rule number 2 is compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. In some instances, you will be the state will be required to draw minority-majority districts for a specific group. And there's a lot of rules that come with that, conditions that come with satisfying that. Contiguity, the districts are all be in one piece. Preserving communities of interest, cities and counties, lines, being compact, and nesting, which is the theory of if you have, since we have 80 assembly districts and 40 Senate districts, can, you know, as best as possible, put 2 assembly districts to match 1 Senate district. But I assure you, usually when it comes, because of the rules, once you kind of satisfy most of the other ones, it's kind of hard to get to the nesting rule. But the whole point is, I've just sent a kind of very briefly, there's, you know, there are some rules, but they're kind of complex and competing mandates. So that's one of the analytical skills that you will have, you know, that you should demonstrate that you have, being able to take all these complex issues and, you know, and do your best to make the best plan possible. Again, you know, and also factor in that people are going to be talking to you. A lot of people are going to be talking to you. So that's kind of what the commission is and what they do, and what makes a good candidate. What are the benefits? You know, people often ask, this is like the next question, like, all right, what are the benefits and what does it entail? What's your time commitment? The benefits, it really is an intangible benefit to some, in many respects. The biggest benefit to me is civic duty. If you have a strong sense of civic duty, this has a very strong benefit to you. The civic duty here is you get to draw the lines that are going to be in place for the next 10 years for state legislative districts. You know, you get to, you know, you are going, it's a way for you to advocate or implement representation, and you get to advocate for your perspective with the other 13 commissioners of why these set of Assembly, Senate, Congressional, and Board of Equalization districts are fair and best and legal for California. Further, you know, you will get to set the rules of engagement for the public participation process. You get to help ensure that there's a trusted public process. You know, you get to influence the speaking time people get when they come and testify, so which influences the number of speakers. If you have shorter time, more people can talk. But if you have shorter time, they can't say as much. So what's your balance? You get to influence what is the public process. You know, and so these are, like, to me, the biggest benefits. You know, people ask, what does it pay? It pays, it's going to depend, but essentially they will pay you $300 a day for every day you do commission business, plus reimbursements if you need to, like, travel, you know, to conduct the business. You know, the previous commission, they, at different points, they were going up and down the state doing all sorts of public hearings and public testimony. So obviously it was a lot of travel. They were reimbursed for all their travel, but they also didn't meet absolutely every day. So, you know, and so the commission, as a commissioner, you will help set what the overall schedule will be. So how much you work, it basically depends on how much you get paid. What are the responsibilities? There's really 2 phases. It's and this is really, you know, what's the time commitment? And there's really 2 periods. There's basically the drawing process and the post redistricting. So technically, your appointment is a 10-year appointment. But really, your heaviest period is going to be the first year. So towards the end of 2020 through towards the end of 2021. That's going to be your heaviest time commitment. You know, when the 14 members are first put in place, you're going to start setting your rules of engagement, what type of schedules you want to keep, how many public input hearings you want. Usually once you set those public input hearings, they could be anywhere between, you know, probably February throughout June. And again, the amount of hearings will vary by, you know, what you and the other 13 commissioners will set. But that'll probably be your heaviest travel period, because the commission set, this last commission at least, they went to up and down California themselves. So they would have to travel themselves. So that was a lot of heavy travel. I would say as many as, like, you know, 2 to 3 public hearings per week during that period. But there's going to come a certain point where then the body needs to start drawing. You know, they're going to take all this in public input and they're going to have to try to draw some maps and draft maps. You know, and again, you will be, as a commission, you will get to hire your legal counsel and your demographer. So it's not necessarily you know, sitting in front of the computer pointing and clicking, but you will have to give direction and feedback that is legally vetted and, and within, you know, what you feel you should should look like. So you have to give instruction to your staff. And that the drawing process is probably going to happen from July through September, or I'm sorry, July through August. But basically but the final map, at the end of the day, the final maps have to be approved by August 15th, 2021. And so that's kind of like, so it's going to be kind of like a roller coaster, kind of going up, down, then way up, and then kind of will level off. After the map process is completed, then you will, then it's kind of like as the commission meets as it feels it needs to. The biggest responsibility post drawing is that if the maps the commission draws are challenged, it is the commission's responsibility to defend it. So, you will hire your legal counsel and your demographers and your experts, but the commission is responsible for defending the maps. The next biggest responsibility afterwards, though, is after you go through your process, you get to offer some suggestions to the next commission for 2031. But basically the body after the drawing process is really done will meet as they feel they need to. Sometimes just usually to discuss redistricting rules and changes in laws that happen throughout the decade. Like the current body met maybe quarterly, and a quarterly conference call here and there. And I also do want to point out I do want to take this time to also mention one post-redistricting thing to keep in mind, is that as a commissioner, if you're selected, you cannot run for any office that you draw. So if you have aspirations of being a state legislator or a congressperson, then probably being a commission, or at least for the next 10 years, being a commissioner is probably not going to be for you, because you will be prohibited from running from a statewide office or a state legislative office. So just please keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the responsibilities and how much it pays and what does it do. What's the actual selection process going to be like? Again, and as I'm going through this webinar, please, if you have questions, type them in to a chat to me, and I will answer them at the end of this discussion. So what does the selection and application process really look like? So as I said at the beginning, the initial application period is open now, and it runs through August 19th. This deadline was just extended yesterday from August 9th. So we have an extra 10 days to August 19th. This initial application is a very quick 10-minute application. It's a web form. You go online, you fill out, give them your name and address, and you tell them, hey, yes, I have been registered consistently for 5 years, and I voted in X 1, 2, or 3 general elections. And again, the punchline of this entire webinar is go and apply right now. It's a 10-minute application process. If you want at any chance at all to be a commissioner, you have to apply now. You can't change your mind after August 19th and say, oh, maybe I will apply. You can't. You have to be in the system starting now, basically, to have a chance. But this initial application, very simple, web form, go online, fill it out. It's a 10-minute process. Then there's going to be a supplemental application period. And this is kind of basically this is like the college essay period of the application. You're going to have to submit about 4 essays, a resume, your political activities, because again, they're going to be looking for those political exclusions, and you're going to need 3 letters of recommendation. MALDEF will be available to help you if you apply and you need some guidance on the supplemental application period. But the general advice is you're going to be treating it like a college application. Your essays have to be succinct, and they're going to be asking you questions about your analytical skills, your ability to be impartial, all those things that I mentioned earlier about what makes a good candidate. You have to tell them why you're a good candidate. Like a good college application, you be succinct, have great examples, and then in letters of recommendation, I always tell students glowing is better than a name recognition. So find people who can strongly recommend you, and then can give their own great examples of how you've been impartial, how you've problem solved, how you've negotiated, conflicts with groups of people, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that they're looking for in a commissioner. You want glowing letters of recommendation with examples, and you want your essays to be, full of examples if possible. But again, that period is between that you will have 30 days, basically August 21st to September 20th, to complete this larger application. After the large college essays go, like the college application, they're gonna there's an applicant review panel at the state auditor. They're gonna go through everyone's essays and letters of rec. They're gonna do their due diligence about your political history, and then they are going to put, basically at the end of April, they are going to put together, or at the end, kind of about February, I should say, they are going to put together a group of 120 people. 40 Democrats, 40 Republicans, and 40 others. So remember, the commissioners are going to be segmented into Democrat, Republican, and other parties. And then these 120 people, these first three pools, they're going to undergo the personal interview process. So the auditor will go, probably fly you up to Sacramento to their office. They're going to go interview. The interviews will be recorded. They're going to be placed on their webpage eventually for people to read. Again, they have a very public and super transparent process. And just note that if you make it to this part of the application process, you're actually going to be required to submit some financial disclosures. So some of your financial, interest will become public record. So just remember that, that you're going to have an element of public. You're going to be as a bit of a public official if you become a commissioner. So some of this information will be out there. Your address isn't going to be published. Your phone number is not going to be published. You'll be given a commissioner email address, but some of your financial records will be made public, whatever you fill out in the forms. And more of this information, what forms specifically, can be found on the auditor's webpage, or you can email me and I'll find out for you in advance. So basically, these 120 people, they're going to go through the interviews. The commissioner's applicant review panel will look through, once all the interviews are done, they're going to narrow down the field down to 60 people, the second pool. So by May 15th, 2020, it's going to come down to 60 people, 20 Democrats, 20 Republicans, 20 others. And then at this stage, the state legislature actually will have a bit of a say in the application process. Each of the state legislative leaders on the Assembly and Senate, so the Speaker of the House, Speaker of the Assembly, and the Minority Leader on the Assembly, the Senate Pro Tem, and the Minority Leader of the Senate, they will each get to strike up to 2 people from each of the 3 pools. So that's basically the legislature is going to strike 24 people from these 60. So it takes them a month, and then but that means the final pools will be winnowed down to a final 36 people, 12, 12, and 12. And then on July 15th, the auditor will basically use bingo balls, and they will select the first official 8 commissioners, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, 2 others. And then, because this is by random draw, and the goal is to make a commission as reflective of California as possible, random is probably not going to, it's unlikely to yield a perfectly balanced California. So these first 8 commissioners will actually choose the final 6 from the remainder of those 36 people from the original pool, and they're going to be selecting those final 6 with trying to kind of find the holes in their diversity, be both geographic and or race and ethnic. But at the end of the day, this is how we get to our final 4 commissioners, final 14 commissioners. So I know this was a long, involved process, but again, the punchline to this entire webinar is that the process starts now. The initial application deadline is on August 19th now, August 19th now. And if you do not take this, fill out this 10-minute form, by then, you have 0 chance of being a commissioner at all. And so again, even if you're thinking about it, apply now. You can always pull out of the process later, but you can't try to rejoin the process later if you don't apply now. So it's a long process, but again, the only reason why we're doing this is, and really the message is, we need you. We need you. So just giving you a few statistics and comparisons to show you how underrepresented the current applicant pools are. So on the left, you're going to see some stats of what they call tentatively eligible applicants. So this is as of this morning, the people who have applied, and at least from what people filled out on their web form, they've been consistently registered, and they have, they've gotten voted enough of general elections, and they don't have any of those apparent political strikes. So of this tentatively eligible applicants, Latinos are only 13.9% of the applicants. Comparatively, Latinos are about 29% of the citizen voting age population. That's a big difference. Our Asian Pacific Islander friends are also severely underrepresented. Asians are only APIs are only 6.4% of the applicant pool, and 13.9% of the CVAP. So that's a big disparity. This chart you see on now is kind of how the how Latino applicants have been varying over the time of since the application process opened on June 13th. You can see when we started, Latinos were only 10.8% of the tentatively eligible applicants, and we've improved to a whopping 13.9%, but that's still far below our statewide registration rate, which is 25.8%, below our CVAP, which is 28.7%, and far below our total population estimate, which is about 38.9%. So almost 40, Latinos are almost 40% of the state, and only 13.9% of the current applicants. So you can see why we're really urging good qualified Latino candidates to apply to this process, because again, at the beginning, how you draw the lines affects who gets elected to these offices. Just some more imbalanced demographics. Just want to highlight that if I putting in some gender data, Latinas, female Latinos, are the most underrepresented group in the current applicant pool. Latinas are 14.6% of the state CVAP, but only 5.7% of the applicant pool. So that's a negative. So that negative 8.9% difference. Next largest group, underrepresented group, Latino men. Then followed by Asian females and API men as well. Not a surprise, the most overrepresented group by far in the state, white men. White men are about 24% of the state CVAP and 38% of the applicant pool. So that just to give you a sense of what, the current applicant pool is not representative of California, and the best chance for us to get a representative body is to start with a representative applicant pool. Regionally, again, Southern California is probably the largest, most underrepresented. The Bay Area and basically Sacramento, which is what the state auditor calls North Central Valley /Mountain region, is the most overrepresented area. Also underrepresented are Central Coast and Inland Empire areas. Just to show you again the imbalance here in the applicant pool compared to California CVAP. Is skewing away from Los Angeles, Southern California, which is home to the most of the Latino population in the state. Now, and again, while we're comparing things to the population, remember these commissioners are going to actually be grouped into three pools: Democrat, Republican, and other. So just to give you a sense of our registration comparisons, Latinos, as I showed you earlier, Latinos are 25% of the registration, but only 13 or 14% of the total registration. This other column on the, just to give you registration data is only given us by surname, so we can only estimate Latino and Asian registration percentages because that's an estimate by surname. So that's why I've broken down the tentative eligible applicants by 2, so you can see the non-Latino, non-Asian difference. But then the third column actually shows you the breakdown by Black, white, and other race and ethnicity, just to show you. So you can see in California, what the applicant breakdown is. But this is total population. What really counts is the the partisan pools as well. So just to show you, Latinos are all actually, are underrepresented in all three pools. They are drastically underrepresented in the Democratic pool. The state Democrats are about 32% registration, but only 16.8% of the applicant pool, Democratic applicant pool. On the Republican pool, Latinos are 14.4% of statewide Republican registration, but only 10% of the applicant pool so far. So not as big of a difference there. And the other party though, California others Latinos are 23.2% of California others, but only 12.2% of the other party pool so far in the CCRC. So I mean, no matter how we kind of look at these data, what the application process is right now, is Latinos are the most underrepresented group. However, you can look by total, you can look by the partisan pools that the auditor is going to put together. So this is why we really are urging folks to apply. So at this point, it's going to be I'm going to be looking at questions. So again, if you're listening to this live, please type questions here. Please type your questions, and I will answer them. And I've gotten a few questions throughout this webinar. And if you're listening to this via recording, please email me at sochoa@maldef.org, and I will answer anything that you are unsure of. But let's see. Going through some of the questions. Let's see. Let's see. Two sets. So who sets the independent commission after the issue locally? So I just want to reiterate, this commission, the CCRC, is only handling statewide redistricting, state assembly, state senate, state or U.S. Congress, and Board of Equalization. As I mentioned earlier, any jurisdiction that has districts will be has to go through redistricting. Oh, and I apologize, there is a siren going through right now. I will try to talk over it. But so your local jurisdictions will be going through their own process. So your county will be going through its own process. Your city or school board, if they have districts, will be going through their own process as well. And if your locals are going to have election dates that are in line with the statewide election, I'm very confident like 80% of the local process will be concurrent, happening at the same time as the statewide process. So back to the earlier point at the beginning, is you have to be organized to not only follow the statewide process, but also your local process as well. Where will these public meetings be held? These public meetings will be held where the commission wants to set them. So a lot of these initial public meetings are actually held throughout the state. So the commission will have its own like public roadshow and go around. There will be a period though where, like, usually during the draw session, where the commission will be probably based in Sacramento. The last commission based itself in Sacramento to do draw sessions. So because at a certain point they just have to like roll up their sleeves and start drawing. They would have meetings. They would usually be in Sacramento. So often participation would have to be held. Public participation would be people going up to Sacramento or conducted through email. But the majority of them, so I would say it's half and half though, Sacramento or a roadshow. But frankly, the commissions themselves will set their own schedule, including meeting locations. So if you're a commissioner, you get to influence that. Let's see. As a regarding age and a 10-year commitment, I think it's fine. It's however you feel, you have to be comfortable. You should be comfortable with a lot of travel. You should be comfortable with a lot of people talking at you. There were a fair amount of retirees on the previous commission, but the age range ran, and the employment background was ran the spectrum. There were local elected officials, there were attorneys, there were retired teachers, so there was, there was a lot, and as long if you feel you can handle, a 1 year's period, where might be frankly doing a lot of travel, I have no problem with. I still urge you to apply, and again, and you still have to demonstrate all those things, the qualities that the auditor is looking for, but yeah, age is just a number. Somebody was asked, was the deadline extended because they didn't get a large enough initial pool? MALDEF and many other groups did advocate to the state auditor to extend the initial application process, in part because, as you saw, the data I showed you, the current tentative applicant pool, which is the only data we have right now to measure, diversity, is, showing that, not quite representative pool. And the auditor also knows that the best way to get a representative applicant, or the best way to have a chance at a representative 14 members, is to have representative pools at each stage. So the initial applicant pool deadline was extended to give a few more folks to a chance to apply, and there was a lot of momentum in recent weeks, frankly, because as the initial August 9th deadline was approaching, so people really started to focus more, and there was a lot more media attention, frankly, that how the current pools are missing a lot of Latino and Asian female voices. So the deadline was extended in part to allow more time to fill out this part. Because again, if you don't fill out this initial application, you have no chance of getting in at all. Let's see. So that's that. Any other questions? So again, if you have any other questions, of course, please type them in the chat window. Alrighty, it sounds like I've answered as many questions as I can. So it is a little bit late. Somebody's asking about letters of recommendation. Again, as I said earlier, I call the supplemental application process like a college application. Your letters of recommendation should be from people who really know you, who can write glowingly about you, and also provide detailed examples of how you have the relevant analytical skills, can be impartial, and have an appreciation for California's diversity. MALDEF will certainly be around to help you with more detail later. During that period, just email me or email me, and we can set up a one-on-one conversation. I'll do my best to make a few handouts as well. The state auditor and other groups will also be having various materials for suggested best practices for the application process. So I think that's it. Those are all the questions I see online. Thank you guys so much for spending this time. I know we ran a little long, but you guys had a lot of great questions. And it is a complicated process, but again, if you have a strong sense of civic duty and you feel you could do, that heavy period of time commitment, you will have a chance to influence who gets elected to California state government for the next 10 years. You can see them by the numbers. Latinos are very underrepresented. So, we are certainly urging all people who of strong civic duty mindedness to apply, but we really are especially looking for Latinos, Asians, and women to apply. Even if you think it's not for you, if you know folks, you think urge them to apply. This webinar will be recorded and will be posted at some point, so people can go and see this replay. Thank you all so much, and please have a pleasant rest of your day, and thank you so much.